We live in a digital world. We live in a world where almost everyone is reliant on computers. Computers are everywhere. In schools, in malls, in businesses, in homes, even on our hands, computers are present. What started out as metal boxes as large as bedrooms, which were only used to quickly compute numbers, have become small devices that can do a lot of things and fit on our hands. People today rely on computers to do various activities: communication, sharing of information, research, record keeping, even studying. The majority of our activities today are handled by computers. Along with the reliance on computers comes a need for cybersecurity. Various sensitive information such as our personal information, transactions, and documents are handled by computer nowadays. Cybersecurity is important because it prevents unauthorized access or malicious use of information that is stored in computers. However, cybersecurity still has some vulnerabilities. One possible vulnerability of cybersecurity is through hash collisions. Hash collisions exist as explainable by a simple mathematical principle called the Pigeonhole principle. The Pigeonhole principle is a simple mathematical principle that basically states that if there are more objects than the amount of containers available, then there will be containers that will have more than one object inside. Imagine that there are 5 boxes, but you have 6 pigeons. To be able to fit them all into boxes, you would need to have 2 pigeons in a box, right? This doesn't always have to be about tangible objects. The Pigeonhole principle can also say that if there are 14 people gathered in a room, it is sure that 2 people share the same birth month because we only have 12 months in a year. Now, how does this relate to cybersecurity? There are these called hash functions that act as unique identifiers for any piece of data. Hash functions work by converting a piece of data into a unique ciphertext. A simple example would be a plain text to a seemingly random string of characters and numbers. Suppose that we have the word love, which when converted becomes A1234 HDSF. The converted version varies depending on which algorithm is used to generate the hash function. Now, what is the problem then? We mentioned earlier that a possible vulnerability of cybersecurity is through hash collisions. It is important to know that a hash function has a fixed size for its output. No matter how long or short our input is, it will always be a fixed size when converted, whether it has a length of 32 bits, 64 bits, 128 bits, and so on depends on the algorithm used. The problem is that there are an infinite number of inputs or data, but there is a fixed output size. In relation with the Pigeonhole principle, this means that it is possible for 2 inputs or 2 pieces of data to have the same output or hash function because the available combinations are also limited. These are what's called hash collisions. Now, how is this a threat to our cybersecurity? There are various attacks possible on hash functions, but let's talk about collision attacks. As we discussed earlier, hash functions act as unique identifiers for any piece of data. In other words, hash functions act as digital signatures of data. A digital signature works by having a hash generated for a file, signing a file with a generated hash, sending the file to a receiver, and when the file is received, a new hash is generated on the receiver side. The hash on the receiver side is compared to the hash from the sender side, and if they match, it seems the file is intact or unchanged. If they don't match, it seems the file has been modified. This works because a simple change in a file, even if it is just one single letter, significantly changes the signature of the file. It is possible that a skilled hacker can forcefully generate a hash function that has the same function as a message. Then, use that function to send a file made by them with malicious intent. Then, send it to the receiver, but the system will not know that it is different because the hash function is the same. Think of this situation. You sign a contract stating that you will buy a house for 1 million. Then a hacker creates a fraud contract stating that you will buy a house for 2 million pesos. The hacker creates the contract in a way that it matches your signature via a skillful manipulation of the contract to ensure it matches the hash function. The hacker then sends the contract to the receiver, and the receiver receives the fraud contract instead of the actual one. The receiver, who has never seen the contract before then, blames you for paying less than the amount stated. The problem here is that if the receiver relies entirely on computer verification of the contract, then it will pass the verification because it matches the signature. That, and many more other possible situations, are just some examples of vulnerabilities of hash functions. We should learn to appreciate cybersecurity even if we don't feel that they are doing something because they work in silence. Protecting our information as we go on our routines in this digital world